Hi, and welcome to the On Par podcast. Saying that a few times in a row always catches me, but my name's Greg Sharp from Zen Contract, and today we're joined by one of APAC's greats, the none other than Mr. Adam Ross, who's the CEO and founder or co-founder at CloudOlive. Great to have you along, Adam.
Yeah, likewise, Sharpie. Good to be here.
Very good. So the topic we're going to go into today is something that I know you have a huge amount of experience in, which is founder-led sales and sales in general, especially from an MSP selling to end customers, which you've dealt with MSPs for a number of years. Why don't you start off for those that don't know you? It'll be a very small select few probably, but a little bit of your background and the journey you've been on.
Yeah, sure. I guess the biggest and most pivotal career trajectory or path or change for me was when I was actually working at an MSP in the UK and then joined Autotask as one of the very early hires in the international business, and was very fortunate to be given the opportunity to launch that company and brand down here in 2011. So in Oz, we had 30, 40 customers at the time, I think about 14K in recurring revenue at the time, and then grew that to 30 plus people over an arc of 8 years before Data acquired us. 6 to 8 years it was, and ended up at about $500,000 in monthly recurring revenue in USD. So it was a great little business by the end, and it was they're really fortunate to be able to just meet and speak with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of MSPs across that period of time. And following that journey, when it came to an end, I kicked off CloudOlive, which was just a gap in Autotask that led into the gap in the ConnectWise solutions, any of the PSAs, whereby just managing license fluctuations from an MSP's perspective is extremely fragmented and difficult. So we've set out to solve that broad problem area with CloudOlive now, and been going for 5.5 years.
In those early days in 2011, I think I might have met you in 2012. It's true that you flew to Aussie and slept on cardboard boxes while you were getting that thing off the ground in the office?
Yeah, even earlier, I actually was traveling around Central America and happened to meet the Autotask execs in Miami, of all places. Very, incredible way in part that it sort of ended up the way it was. But I was in Guatemala at the time and was like, there's this great opportunity in London, actually it was. So I got couple of suits made up and flew back to London, and that's where sort of stayed with a friend. Was working Aussie hours plus Europe, so was sleeping on boxes in the office. And it turned out that was the data center for the Autotask London and UK business. That was that was a while ago.
So you're now 14 years in MSP world selling to, and now be fair to say that you've dived really, really deep into this recurring billing problem and then sorted that out with CloudOlive. And so you've, like me, ex-business MSP owner, business owner, and we got to meet, like I said, in 2012, or if not earlier. You've been dealing with people like that all along the way, and have now obviously lived the journey of founder-led sales. So you're kind of really well suited to to discuss some of these topics today. And I know working with the likes of yourself and Bergs and some other people in the industry, we've got some ideas on how these types of sales are run. So let's start off in the beginning. What's your opinion on how an MSP owner, let's say they've got 5 employees or 10 employees, and they want to start growing their business outside of organic word of mouth? Where would you say the points are to get started?
Yeah, I think that every MSP is on a different journey and a different track and a different path, and have different, as a founder, right? You've got different things that you enjoy, different sort of maybe a vision that you've potentially got over the 5-10 years into the future. So I think it's hard to go, this is the silver bullet. What I think some of the fundamentals though are, there's a real superpower in a founder or a co-founder being the one that's at the forefront of the conversations with net new business. And I think like in a software world or Autotask world, or even at in an MSP landscape, some of the things that I think everyone should do periodically, but if you haven't done it like in a really serious form, you should take some time out and go, where have we won in the past? Like real basic 101 stuff, right? Which is our top 5 customers, and why are they our top 5 customers? And where did these customers come from? And what do they talk about us? And if it is from word of mouth, like I think that the knee-jerk reaction in the industry is, we need so much more than that, which is totally true, but you should also be leaning into that as well. Like if word of mouth is where you go your top 5 and you go, oh, look, Sally introduced us to all of these people. Okay, Well, let's go and understand what we're doing specifically with, so I don't know where that name came from, but Sally in this instance, and work out what is the pains that we've helped take away from herself. And also, or is it even bigger than that? Like, have we somehow unknowingly given Sally this career trajectory that she really relates back to what us as a little MSP is providing her, and getting in under the hood? Because at the end of the day, people are buying from people. And if you got 5 referrals last year, can you get 10 this year just by pushing that button and seriously going and looking for where there's traction, and then just trying to ratchet up where you are seeing some success? So I don't know if that answers your question. I wouldn't shy away from
It is because what we're trying to allow is figure out, what does it actually get started with. And so just in summary, what I'm hearing is take one or two of your people, go into a room with a whiteboard, allocate an hour, and write down the 5 customers that you just, the last 5 customers that you won, and then right next to it how you won them. Did they come as a referral? Was it an existing customer, spoke to someone at a barbecue? Was it Sally actually went and spoke to someone, and maybe they were just an internet customer and you managed to talk them up to managed services and then up to managed security? And analyze that type of thing, because there's probably a pattern, and then exactly as you said, lean into that pattern. Go and maximize what you're already doing. I think that's a fantastic piece of it.
And also, even it's not forever, right? It should be running sprints. Like all these operating systems that you can join, it's all about like next quarter, what are we focused on? And providing it's okay if it doesn't work, right? If you try it, you have some form of basic reporting of, hey, this is what life looks like before we did this thing. After we did this thing, we spent X amount. We got this return or no return. Guys, that was such a distraction. We've now learned never to do that thing again. So I think there's merit in just trying to have a understanding where you're currently at, and then just as a team going, right, let's try and remove all these other ideas that we could have for now. Let's focus on this, and then let's regroup at the end of that and work out, hey, is this something that we should be doing more or less of in the next quarter?
I think that's a real valid point, is that there needs to be a periodic review. And let's break that down in normal terms, right? We're going to actually discuss this for half an hour a month, or we're going to allocate our sprint being is 3 months. We've got 5 ideas of getting new business. This particular idea is going to be exactly what we lean into and focus on for the next 3 months. And we're going to ascertain as to whether it's worked or not. If it hasn't, we throw it out the door. And then the next one we bring in for the next 3 months, and we figure out whether that works or hasn't.
Yeah. And for our just to give you a very specific example that we're working through right now is we spent time in January and got the team together from all corners where everyone is. And one of the things we really wanted to try and get across to everyone was there's really 4 different personas and profiles, like going back to the ideal customer profile, the ICP, and really having talk tracks around. So we got Sally, right? Let's say that Sally hypothetically works in admin, she works in finance. From a personal level, what stresses might she have? What she's trying to do, like extremely time for, has a family. And then you've got different personas that you really want to be able to specifically talk to that person, and like it's so specific, it's so unbelievably specific that you almost become a little celebrity to that type of persona and profile, because you're only trying to have that conversation with that one person. There might be 2 or 3 people depending on the size, but this comes back from where have we actually had some success. You will find in the past, right, you will find patterns, and I think this is really important to recalibrate. If you're small, medium, or large, if you've got some wins under in your already under your belt, then this is a process that will just give you some direction, right? That's all. It's just going to have a bit of a structure, a bit of a plan that will take you forward and be like, okay, it's not as stressful because there's so many moving parts. At least we have a plan. That plan might not work, but we'll also learn from the plan not working.
Yeah, I think by example from Base 2, a company that I sold a while ago, we got some good wins early in milk processing and rural. Obviously we're in New Zealand, there's lots of that stuff around, but we then had some very eloquent case studies and stories around those wins, so it made the sales job a little bit more convincing, and then you got some more, so it made it more convincing, right?
Yeah, man, it's the flywheel. It's traction. Once you get some form of essence of traction, and just be really sensitive to where it's coming from, it will not be on a whiteboard, we're going to get traction like this. It's very rarely like that. And I think from the MSP, the challenge they have is it's hard to differentiate. They're largely reselling similar tools. So it's like, where do we have some special secret sauce that actually Sally or some of our other customers really rave about? Go and ask them, how would you describe our partnership? How would you describe what we've done for you as a company, or perhaps even better from a personal perspective, like the human to human interaction. But that's been some of the most amazing feedback we've got. I remember a couple of years ago, I asked one of our clients in the States and I went, hey, how would you describe what we do? And he went, well, Adam, you're a multi-vendor reconciliation. I was like, oh, of course that's what we are. We had never cooked up that description ourselves ever. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, this is what we do. And it immediately placed us in terms of, as an MSP, I understand roughly now the category that you're trying to help with.
Right. And that's by the time you get round to actually thinking about this process of trying to attract new customers, you've already got 10 or 15. You're bound to have a few customers already. And some that you would have formed, because they're foundational customers, quite good relationships with. There's no problem with actually asking them, hey, how would it affect you if we weren't with your business? Or what's the value statement that you actually get from us? And then try your best to shut up and say nothing for the next 2 minutes and allow them to actually ruminate on it, think about it, and then fire a few words out. And ultimately, those few words that come out, that's how you want to pitch your services to the like-minded people you're going to go and talk to.
And also on top of it, right, it's a win-win. If you can elevate their business perhaps through a case study, hey, they have this incredible security posture moving in. They understood the risks. They've invested heavily in it. Like, it's a win-win. That dairy farm or whoever it is that you've just won on, as you spoke about, like it's something that they can be elevated up as well. And all, like, if you can lift one another up, then sort of everything around you grows. That sort of thing's a really clear win-win when it's done in the right way. And generally, if you're doing a good job, like, they want to help big time, especially if it's early on, especially if it's founder-led.
That's right, because there's a relationship there. They actually want to help you be more successful. If for no other reason that if you're more successful, they're going to get better service.
Yeah, correct. Or if you're not there, it's going to suck. Like, that, you solved the problem for them, and if you're not there anymore, they're like, oh, it's back to the Stone Ages. That's not good.
Exactly. And there's a number of good nuggets in there around lean into your existing relationships, ask your customers about what your value statement is, go and articulate that value statement off to like-minded businesses. Notwithstanding, as you grow, you want to manage your client concentration risk. So you don't want all your revenue coming from milk processing plants in case the price of milk hits the floor. But you're obviously you're gonna have 3 or 4 immediate ones that jump out as to where you're having wins.
Think about those sprints again, right? Let's look at net new business. Like, there's massive benefit in if it land and expand with the MSP sort of market. Like, in an ideal world, everyone's got $200 a month, all encompassing user. They take everything, and they're 100 seats, and they just pay, and it's like awesome, right? But the reality is that if you can find your specific niche within that where you're really strong, and that's going to come from customer feedback over anything else, and may not be what you anticipate that to be, but lean into it, because if you can get some form of consistent traction, then you can try and systemize into the future, not now, but into the future. It could be winning on a very specific part of a tech stack, or offering the services around is a foot in the door. And that could be a sprint for the MSP to go, for this quarter, let's really try to hone in and work out if that's our avenue, and then come back and say, was it more or less effective than the previous campaigns, messaging, efforts that we had invested in? And you'll be able to go, it's binary, right? Yep. Or nope. And go, okay, well, let's move more towards the yes side of it. And what can we take to do it again and again and again and again and again?
Yeah, so let's just dig in on that for a second. So what you're saying is an approach is not necessarily go and try and attain customers with all singing, all dancing model where you're selling them everything all up front, because that's probably going to be it will be a higher monthly spend. It might extend the sales cycle. It's more of a commitment. You could actually just use a thin wedge and get in there and then expand out over time.
Like, if you speak to
isn't that the Datto model? That's what you guys used to do with Datto, right? Get an Alto device out there, and then you've got a different team that's just expanding.
Yeah, totally. Like, in that scenario, like a fleet displacement of $10,000 a month. Like, don't get me wrong, if that's on the table and you can take that down, happy days, and everyone's going to be celebrating that, right? Everyone hits their number, but it does create a little bit more friction. And also, like, on the flip side, if that's what you're closing now, and that's where you've somehow struck gold and that's working, then double down on that. That's awesome. Like, you're going to have more and more case studies, and maybe into the future. And again, depending on your MSP, depending on the level and timeline and maturity and all the rest of it, and where you've been focusing and finding success, everyone's going to be a little bit different. But I think if there's products out there that you trust, a lot of the time it's going to be some tech product that's going to be embedded into the end client. If you trust them, and you know that they're robust, you know that they do their job. There's things like MDF, like marketing
Development funds.
development funds. Thanks, Sharpie.
Yeah.
MDF funds that like can help, and you can get a speaker from the vendor to come along, and you try and get 20, 30, 40 people in a room, or do a more like a smaller, more intimate breakfast briefing or something. They're all just a hypothesis, an unknown hypothesis that should be tested and then worked out if that fits your model moving forward, and if something you should really, really double down into. I was recently at the Evolve. We're sponsoring ConnectWise Evolve, which I'm sure most people know, but it's an industry ecosystem, or an event where business leaders is the one that we go to. The founder CEO go quarterly meet up, and it's a really great community. You open up the book to one another, and you're stationed with similar sized MSPs, so you can just learn from one another. And one of the bits of data that we were then shared was, and I forget exactly, but it was something like the industry is expected to grow 11 to 12% next year. So that 11 to 12% next year is like, that's par for the course, right? If you hit 11 to 12%, you're growing with the market. That's the minimum. If you're not growing at that pace, you're going backwards compared to the industry itself. So it's like, okay, cool. Now we have a number to start to play with. And if you generated $1 million in revenue last year, then 11%, like it's a little over 1.1, right? And you're like, okay, now we've got some metrics in place that we can begin going, can we double the business? Because that would be phenomenal. Can we grow 20%? Because that's ahead of the market. How would we reverse engineer that? If we've then got 5 referrals last year and 1 of them closed, can we get 10 referrals this year and expect 2 to close? Yeah. It's generally like a referral is normally closer to a 50%, 45 to 50% close rate. There's real merit in again, just doubling down on that until you figure out everything else.
Yeah. If we fast forward into a couple, because I really want to get to the billing reconciliation side of the business. I mean, obviously, I want to talk about contracts, but if we could spend a couple minutes just on your experience around qualification when you're actually in the meeting. Let's say you've got the lead source, you actually get to the point where you're sitting in front of the person, either online or in person. I think we'd both agree in person, if you've got geography on your side, is great. And you're having these discussions, they're talking about their problems, so you're doing that discovery phase, you've in your mind mapping your solutions to their discovery, so you're putting that back to them. What I want to know is around what I use BANT. I think you guys might do as well, but the qualification side of things, the questions are asked. Do you have budget? Do you have the authority to make the decision? The need for the business? What happens if you don't buy this service? And then the timeline. Is that still you and your sales team, even though you're selling to MSPs, is that still the qualification methodology that you're still using?
You bet. Yeah, we've actually got a form that we've got maybe 20, 25 questions, and that's really just to guide our reps in terms of consistently capturing all the information and the data. That once we've got that, then we've got a really good indication of how good of a fit out of 5 that might be, like 1 through 5. And 5 out of 5 is like, we have to win them on immediately at whatever cost it is, because we know they're going to be with us forever. Yeah, that's a rep-driven semi-assumption, but it's based on 19 other points that provide us, coming back to what we did a lot of work on with the team in January in terms of our ideal customer profile, the size, like all of that are the questions that we're trying to follow to work out, if we move forward with you, Mr. MSP, is this going to be a really mutually successful relationship that's just going to be there forever? And if it's not, let's get that on the table now, because if our value to you, like one of the things that if the Autotask or ConnectWise, which are the 2 systems that we work with, if they're not set up in a way that, like, we really want things broken apart, and the MSP should do, because it's the only way to get proper reporting. But if they don't have that, like, we're very open. Like, our ROI, like, there's no way you can get accurate costs inside your PSA. So perhaps, hey, know that coming with us, we can't update those things on your behalf. So if that's the case, our ROI to you is not going to be as strong as if you did have them broken apart. Let's work on a fair, tailored approach to make sure that this is still a cost-effective and valuable solution, generating an ROI every single month. And I think that is pivotal in regardless of what you're selling. The MSP, again, the real tricky part is, and I worked at an MSP as very junior, but as an account executive, and we had about, I can't remember now, but 10 to 15 different solutions that we could have lent on and sold, as well as people that we could outsource into them. So going in there, you're like, oh my God, there's so many things and so many opportunities potentially here. And as they're saying a pain, I'm like, oh, I've got a person that can fix that. Tony in our engineer, oh, he's the man for that. He's done that elsewhere. And I guess it's just looking at all of these possibilities and trying to help the prospect or the potential partner in the future, client in the future, just trying to help them evaluate this in terms of where their pains actually are and how much pain there actually is. And then is there allocated budget to try and solve this pain? I think a really important question, which I'm glad it just came from, but a really important question to ask is, how have you tried to solve this already? And if they've tried to solve it already, that's a really good indicator that they need you now. Like, if they haven't tried it yet, try not to get happy ears off the back of it, because it's probably, in reality, it's probably not that far along in the decision-making criteria yet. But if they've tried 2 or 3 different things and it's not worked, it's like, now's the time. Let's get this done ASAP. Let's do whatever we can do to move this as fast as we possibly can.
No, we should just highlight that, because that's a golden question when it comes to need, is how have you tried to solve this problem in the past? And then just try and, again, be quiet and let them talk and let them talk and let them talk. I'm still a massive fan of doing 2 times the amount of discovery as solution delivery. Like listen and listen. Oh, it went on mute. While you're doing that, obviously go to active listening, where you're hearing their pain points and trying to map it to your solutions, so that when it's your time to talk, you've got quite a clear, concise.
This is the founder, right? The founder knows all the inner working threads and fibers of every implementation, of every solution, and every problem and pain and cancellation, and they've just got all of this stuff that's just blended together, and you can recall that in a really powerful manner. So I come from the sales aspect of it. So I as one of the co-founders here, I never want to be out of the sales element. I think that it would be a disjustice to everyone, the reps, our investors, like the company. It's just not going to grow as quick. But I think there's I'll give you an example. My co-founder Enrico, not a sales guy per se, like he's a phenomenal company builder and technology builder. When we bring him on a conversation, it's so open, honest. It's just trust is built instantaneously. And I feel like all the MSPs largely come from typically a technical background, certainly more than 50%. It's like, that is such a superpower. Like, if you can talk on top of that, it's such a superpower that should be leveraged. I'm sure everyone's got, you will know that yourself. It's just something that a lot of people don't enjoy naturally doing, but you can learn to enjoy it. You can learn to get good at it.
If you go into call it a sales encounter or whatever, the meeting with a mindset that you've got the solution to a lot of the person's problems that you're going to see, you just have to articulate them in a way and keep money out of the thing. There will be some money changes hands, but you're actually the key to their safe to unlock exactly, solving of their pain points. If you go in with that mindset that you're doing them a favor, you're actually there to help them out, then it just disarms the whole thing. You're not there to sell them a bicycle that they don't want. You've got solutions to help them solve their problems, and I think that's a good mindset to have when you're going into these things, for sure. Let's move forward onto the last couple of things that I want to talk about. So one thing I'm really curious to get your opinion on is, when you go and see a prospect, you obviously do the active listening, you then prescribe the things, you've finished your social encounter. How important is it to get them back a proposal for your services, and what's the speed of that thing? My opinion is it's really important to get it back to them quickly so that you're still top of mind. What are your thoughts?
With the same day, without a shadow of a doubt, no ifs, no buts, no excuses, that same day.
Right.
Some form of communication, again, if it's super complex and all the rest of it afterwards, but still there should be a follow-up email with what can be portrayed at that point in time. But there's no excuses. And the reason why I think that's super important is you're front of mind after that meeting and after that time and after that call, right? So if they're meeting others, it's very rare that it's a singular, non-competitive environment, right? So you're not just competing in terms of like the problem, the solution, all the rest of it. It's actually the sales engagement and level of professionalism that the MSP is experiencing, or like the end client's experiencing with the MSP. It all plays into it. And for me, it's really important that is delivered that day, like ideally that day. And then after that, you're going to set yourself apart from the other competitors that you're likely going to be working with.
Exactly. So turnaround time, the professionalism of what you look like. I mean, therefore, it's got to be set up in a templatized way for you to be able to get it out the door. Your active listing will need to be portrayed in that proposal. So there needs to be one little section who hey, I heard you talking about this item, this item, this item, and it's mapped across to this and this and this. But for me, you're right, is it's exactly what you said. You're top of mind for a period of time. That period of time will be on a declining path the more time that goes past as to how relevant you are.
Yeah, and get it out early, but you should have some form of follow-up from that meeting. Hey, when would you like us to follow up? What does it look like from here? Understanding their process in procuring services of this nature. If they've never done it before, there's no harm in having like a joint evaluation plan that you can work with them on that has milestones. Go and note, like you can just Google something like that and it will come up. There's plenty of them. But having go, no go sections where if it's not a fit, you want to bow out. And if it's not going to work, then you sort of want to understand that, navigate around it, or retract yourself from the effort that's going to be getting applied to something you may not win.
Yeah, actually, just to hone in on that, don't be afraid. If you don't think it's going to be a fit, to reply back very quickly to say, thank you for the opportunity. I'm not sure that we're going to be a fit. Here is 2 or 3 other names you might want to consider, and take that as a win.
That and or like take a subsection of the business and go, do you know where, like, I think we're looking at this where I think we can help, but the whole picture of it, probably, like, I'm not totally in agreement that that's the right path that you should possibly take or whatever. But that, like, at the end of the day, if it's perceived and it should be right that you're on the same side of the desk of them and you got one pen together and you sort of work in this sketch of this plan of the future out together, that it should be a natural progression. And I think if you can offer like brutal honesty, people love it. People love that. And it's rare these days. You're likely going to get tagged along. Could be a fit, might not be a fit. And I think when an MSP and or any vendor are just like, here's the facts, here's what we know, it resonates really closely.
Perfect. Then the final part is what, you get every new customer is a contract to manage, which requires billing and reconciliation, right? So let's hone in on that a bit. Obviously, I'm from Zen Contract, having good contract infrastructure and your legal footprint and everything is somewhat paramount. So if you want to look into that off the back of this podcast, in zencontract.com. But billing and reconciliation, CloudOlive is fast making a name for itself, if it's not already, as the established partner of convenience. You've built some amazing software there that saves oodles amounts of time and massively increases accuracy. So what are you seeing as some of the great case studies and upsides with the partners that you're working with?
Well, I think like what we've been talking about is the front end, right? The pointy end of closing a new deal or growing an account. What happens in the background in the admin finance teams are all the moves, adds and changes that occur at the end client site every single month across all these different vendors. And we sort of we wrap our arms around that problem for an MSP and just ensure that there's zero revenue leakage, ensure that there's like, if someone should have 10 of this thing, if they don't have 10 of this thing, you can quickly see this quality control issue arising and then act on it. But we always see that and expect like once implemented, like you're spending 8 hours on this process now, oftentimes it's a lot more, but if it's 8 hours, you're probably going to be spending an hour. You've got confidence, accuracy, your PSAs now finally reporting customer profitability accurately. I think 95% of MSPs don't achieve that. Accurate cost management in those systems is a hard thing to do at any scale.
So all the efficiencies, revenue leakage, better information reporting, so accurate decision making. I mean, there's a whole lot of flow-ons there from what you might just look at as excuse my ignorance, as a solution to be able to go from 8 hours to 1. There's so much more that sits behind that as far as better reporting, revenue leakage, stopping paying for licenses that you're not actually consuming. You must see so much that uncovered.
So much, yeah. Well, we've seen real horror stories. That's a solvable problem with CloudOlive, like any revenue leakage on recurring services. But the thing that we've really watched closely now is what MSPs want and what the end client want is to know who's assigned to what license. Who do we actually have? Which humans do we have at the end of each of these licenses and within our Microsoft stack and all the rest of it? Because at the end of the day, if you're moving more towards a user-based or device-based, there's a central data point underneath that CloudOlive is beginning to read more and more and more and present in a way that the MSP's got more confidence and control, understanding who is assigned to your business premiums and who dropped off in the prior month. Like that's the level of granularity now that we've solved revenue leakage that we're like full pelt running into to help our partners just reduce billing queries. So when you invoice an end client, they just like, yep, chuck it on credit card, we're all good. recurring, paid on the first, happy days into the future. That's a hard thing to get to. And CloudOlive just offers some really cool, innovative ways to just move towards that level of control and visibility.
So that's another thing that's there's multiple touch points in an engagement and an ongoing relationship, right? And so billing queries, they detract, so you can get rid of those. The perceived nature of the fact that you've really got your shit in order as a business, so that elevates you again. And some of these passive things actually don't necessarily come from the engineer solving the ticket. So there's multiple contact points that.
Yeah, and like you think about what we started with, right? Referrals and getting good business. Like a big part of that is you're invoicing these people every single month. And if there's ever a discrepancy, it gradually sort of deprecates the trust between end client and MSP. So the less of that can be introduced into the system or the potential, obviously the better. And often a lot of MSPs are really struggling with that. So it can actually, if you've got it under control for yourself, it can be a real talking point when you're speaking with new partners. Hey, how have you found the billing of this? Like, it's a worthwhile pain point to try and uncover, because we've got a very small slither of the MSP market from a percentage perspective using CloudOlive, which means they've all got this problem. Everybody else has got this problem still.
Oh man, I know it. Live and breathe it across how many MSPs that I've been involved with and owned. I mean, it's still there, 100%. Same with the contract side of things. We were talking before around getting your agreements and even proposals, back out to the prospect as soon as.
How quickly would you suggest they should go out?
Within hours, like literally within hours. So, the ideal scenario for me is that you are seeing the customer, you're writing notes, you're ringing your either sales admin person and relaying to them, these are the pain points and this is what I suggest, and then they can get that into a proposal and send it out. If you're doing it yourself, then as soon as you're back in the office, it should be a 10-minute exercise, and that's 2 minutes creating it and 8 minutes you writing in the active listening points that you did in the meeting, right? It shouldn't take more than that. So certainly on the day, if you had to get, like you said, if you had to get technical input from someone else, and then a follow-up email saying this is what I'm going to prescribe, I'm just getting some technical information, it will be with you at 12 o'clock tomorrow, that's fine.
Correct. Yeah, it's perfect.
But not waiting 24 hours. And God forbid, before we had Zen Contract in our MSP, some of these things, because of water cooler movements and then information flow between teams or whatever, it was taking a week, maybe 2 weeks. That is just not the way the world works today. Yeah, in summary, on the day, or an email on the day, and technical information, the next day.
If the prospect feels a really polished meeting, it's like there's energy in the room at that point in time, and then it closes out, and then it goes over the weekend before they get the follow-up and the email, especially if someone was promised a little bit earlier, that it massively diminishes all the effort that you and likely the team had put in to do well in that first face-to-face interaction.
It's exactly the same as not having your billing in order or whatever. It just takes you down a peg as your perception of how you're operating as a business and how quickly you can turn things around when you're in the clinch. And so perception is the reality, and you've got to make sure that you play to those strengths. And also, if you get that stuff in order, it's going to put you at the top of the heap against the rest of the industry, because like you say, you've got a small portion of the industry, and so do we. And those are the ones that are really getting their stuff in order. That puts them to the top of the stack. So
it totally just lets you and the leadership team, or you and whoever it is that you sort of retired in, will talk to is how do we get to that, surpass the 11% growth year on year, or 20% or 50% or 40%. It's like, let's go back to that. How can we spend more time executing on a prescribed plan that we put in place for the next X number of months? How do we just not get distracted against anything about that? Like solutions like Zen and CloudOlive just give complete peace of mind for you at the very front end, right? And also for yourself as well, like the keeping end clients under contract in an automated way is super valuable, tedious process that you can just largely put on autopilot with some like human guidance, which is what you want.
Exactly. Hey, I just want to close this out. Say thank you very much for taking the time and
thanks for having a Sharpie.
Yeah, great to have you here. If you would like to hear more about CloudOlive, it's cloudolive.com, and your email address is Adam.
Just Adam at cloudolive.com.
Perfect. And similar for us, if you want to hear more around the contract side of things, contract automation, contract lifecycle management, and how you can put that on autopilot, as Adam said, Greg at zencontract.com, or just go to the website www.zencontract.com. And this is obviously going to be put up on social media platforms. If you'd like to any information, you certainly can request it through those. But again, Adam, so good to see your face and have you along, and good luck for the Lions tour.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Good on you. Speak soon.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.